Hey folks, David here with Christian Kopeck of Kopeck Custom Painting. We're here to just talk a little more about painting your home. I know a lot of us have been inside more over the past few months, so we may be considering painting a room or painting a whole home for that matter. So first off, Christian, thank you for being here and on your job site. Just curious, like what would you say a ballpark would be for painting, having a pro like you paint, 1,000 square feet of home?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you a couple different ballparks. If you're just gonna do everything in like 1,000 square feet,
Yeah.
you're probably looking like $5 to $6 grand.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't do everything. They'll do just the walls. If you're gonna do that, you're probably looking around 2,500.
Okay.
Another common thing is to do like the walls and the trim, and leave the ceiling. That would probably add like 1,500. And then if you do the ceiling, add around another 900 to that.
Okay.
One thing when we're in there and we're doing the walls, a lot of the homes that we're doing, they just have like the original builder paint on the ceilings,
I see.
and it's a little bit like an off-white. So when we have everything covered, everything moved out of the way, and we're doing the walls already, it's a lot easier to just do the ceilings, and you can do a brighter white, because that builder paint's like an off-white that kind of
Right.
looks
Right.
kind of dingy over time.
Right.
So that's a nice little thing. If we just came in and only painted your ceilings, that would be you're looking at a lot more for that. Whereas if we're in there already,
Right.
we can do your ceiling for pretty good. So
Yeah. More reasonably priced. So, like you would say, just a basic kind of painting the walls, which is probably what a lot of people think of offhand. They don't think of the baseboards or the ceiling for that matter. Something like that for 1,000 square feet is like 2,500.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's a good point of reference. Is there anything that homeowners don't really think of that maybe costs a premium to paint, like coffered ceilings or maybe ornate crown? Does that cost more to paint or?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously whenever you're doing some sort of trim, fancy trim like that, it's pretty time consuming, and that will add a lot. I feel like probably the more just common things where homeowners aren't expecting an extra cost is when I guess just to start, so normally you do like 2 coats on the ceilings, 2 coats on the walls, and that coat of paint on the trim and doors.
Right.
If you're gonna do everything.
Right.
But if you are gonna change the color of the trim, that means you're looking at 2 coats,
Okay.
and then that significantly kind of spikes the price,
I see.
and a lot of people don't see that coming.
Okay.
The other thing is, a lot of it nowadays, especially, you got like open floor plans, and a lot of people just do like one wall color.
Right.
If you want a bunch of different wall colors, that'll kind of start
That costs
adding
more.
to the price. Yeah.
That makes sense.
So-
Okay. Well, that's helpful to know. I think if you're going from like a dark blue to, let's say, a light gray, that would cost more than just staying in the same kind of tone of a lighter eggshell and then a lighter gray. That would be less expensive. Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense. What I'm curious, kind of, what do you have a project minimum, and what areas do you service? So.
Yeah. So we don't have a project minimum per se. We kind of specialize in projects over $1,500.
Okay.
If a project's gonna be like under $500, we're gonna refer like a handyman typically.
Right.
If it's a repeat client, we might
Take care of
it.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, I have a powder room that is like 50 square feet, so that would not meet the minimum. But no, that's great. Well, what are some, a lot of people want to just, paint themselves, and that makes total sense, right? I mean, we're all stuck inside, so, why not paint something? That's something I have on my honey-do list, but what are some tips that you would have for people that are painting themselves? I know my father-in-law said that you want to buy the most expensive brush, which seems a little insane to me, that you would pay more for a brush than the can of paint, but
Yeah.
I don't know if there's truth in that and what you would recommend. So yeah.
Yeah, no, so it is definitely important to have a good brush. That's probably going to run you like $15 to $20
Okay.
as far as a decent brush.
Right.
I'd say probably the two biggest mistakes I see with like kind of DIY projects is for one thing, when you're like rolling walls, not loading up so the nap is a little head that goes on your roller,
Right.
and that a lot of people they don't put enough paint on that, and then sometimes they're trying to save paint, whatever, and they're just trying to roll it out real thin.
Yeah.
You actually use more paint when you're trying to save paint, because you're putting it on so thin it'll start like drying, and you're like starting to do like multiple
Coats.
But then the other thing is, if it's not a flat, when you're looking down the wall, you're gonna see all sorts of, like, I think we call them holidays or something. But it won't look good it won't have a nice crisp look to it.
I gotcha.
When you don't keep a wet edge.
Okay.
So, and then the other thing I see a lot is people don't understand like when to use tape and what to use tape for.
Okay.
So, like for us, we mostly use tape for like keeping like like a roller overspray off of things you don't want painted.
Right.
So a lot of people think of it as like, this is how you do your lines, and you can do lines between like a wall and a trim piece.
Okay.
Like that, but you typically can't do like your ceiling line with that. Because it's not a smooth enough surface because it's drywall.
Okay.
So on your trim you have a real smooth surface typically.
Right.
And so the paint won't sneak under the tape.
I gotcha.
So that's you can do like some lines like that, but if you try to do like your cut in line on your ceiling, a lot of times it'll look really bad.
Okay.
So
is that where that like nice brush comes in, where you're able to just do the line?
Yeah.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. So okay, my father-in-law was right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's anything else tip-wise for? Well, what type of paint do you recommend?
Yeah. So, I mean, depends on the surface. In general, there's kind of like 3 different paint sheens. There's your flat paint, your eggshell paint, and then your semi-gloss.
Okay.
And your flat is what you would use on the ceilings. Eggshell is what you would use on the walls.
Okay.
And then your semi-gloss is for like trim indoors.
I gotcha.
So, nowadays, those are kind of like the traditional 3 sheens.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you have all sorts of ones in between.
Okay.
So, a lot of people I think are doing their walls, so I'll just go with that one.
Yeah.
They make like kind of a washable mat.
Okay.
That's the one we probably use the most on walls nowadays. It's kind of supposed to give you that flat look.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit washable. It's not the more like sheen you have in a paint, the more it's going to be able to wash.
Right.
Clean, and the more dirt it'll be. But
and I've heard that like builder grade paint is, people always have the problem of wanting to repaint their home after the builder just puts on the basic builder grade because it doesn't clean well.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Is there a certain brand that you recommend?
Yeah, so we use a lot of Sherwin-Williams and some Benjamin Moore. The one that we like the most, I say like a mid-grade one would be the cashmere flat enamel.
Okay.
That'd be your wall paint, and then kind of like a high-end paint would be the duration matte.
Okay.
So those are.
And those are Benjamin Moore?
No, those are Sherwin-Williams.
Okay.
Benjamin Moore has some good ones too. One thing to know is everyone always asks me, do you use Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore or whatever, and they both have their really cheap paints and they both have their really expensive paints.
Right.
So just because it has the name doesn't mean
it's good.
It's good.
Okay.
So.
So that's what you would recommend paint-wise, and are there? I'm curious, any finishes that you're seeing a lot of people do? I know, saving maybe some viewers' hours of scouring the internet for what's the most trendy paint finish. What do you see a lot of?
Yeah. So the kind of that the duration matte or the cashmere flat enamel. Those are the two most common finishes because it kind of, the matte gives it kind of that modern, like, crisp look.
Right.
Where it's not, doesn't have a lot of shine to it.
Okay.
If you have a couple little kids, that's when we kind of sometimes recommend the eggshell, where people will use the eggshell.
Right.
In my home, that's actually what we used.
Eggshell.
Actually, I think it's half and half.
Okay.
But, and that's still good. It's just the more modern kind of crisp look is that washable matte.
Okay. That makes sense. And then from a color perspective, I guess, do you see a lot of, I know with agreeable gray, is that still the most popular?
Yeah. So the agreeable gray is the one that we probably put it on the most.
Yeah.
So that's the Sherwin-Williams color.
Agreeable gray.
Yeah.
In case you didn't get that.
Yes. So.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that family of grays is the most popular right now. One thing I would kind of just warn people that are looking at colors is a lot of times people like to do like a variation of gray, so like a bluish gray or a greenish gray.
Yeah.
It's happened a few times where a client will pick out a color and then you start putting it on the wall, and on the chip it looks like a gray, and then you put it on the wall and it looks baby blue.
Yeah.
So that's something I would just kind of just warn when you're looking. You got to see what kind of undertone it's going to have.
Yeah.
Because once it's all over the walls, it's going to stand out a lot more.
So paint a bigger section of the wall so maybe you can see it better would be what you would recommend.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, a lot of times I don't have a chip, but say you go somewhere and you get like at Home Depot they have like a color card with maybe like 5 different colors.
Yeah.
One of them is going to be like the darkest color at the bottom. So a lot of times, like, you'll have almost like a blue at the bottom, that dark color, and then you go up and you'll find like a bluish gray.
Yeah.
That color at the bottom is a real good indicator of like where the color's going to go once you paint it.
I see.
So it's the same thing with I just have like big color wheels.
Right.
And that one color at the bottom kind of tells you what the color at the top is coming from.
That makes sense.
So
that makes sense. Okay. That's great. How would someone get in touch, with you? What's your preferred method? I'm going to put Christian's contact info in the notes below this video, so you know how to reach out to him. But what's your preferred method of contact for folks who may be interested in, having you paint as opposed to themselves?
So just a phone call is best.
Okay.
If you go to our website, you can fill out the contact form, and then we'll get an email, and then we'll give you a call.
Okay.
Ultimately, it's nice to obviously have like a phone conversation before.
Right.
We can do everything by email before an appointment, but it's nice to have a phone conversation and kind of. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So that's great, and yeah, guys, Christian's my go-to guy. So in our industry, we're always looking for great contractors, and Christian's one of those, and so check him out online as well. He has 5 stars on Yelp, Houzz, Angie's List, Google. So feel free to do your homework there too. But I'll put the notes below for reaching out to Christian. Hopefully this video is helpful, and thanks for watching.